Hey, I'm Cyclon, and today I want to share with you Harbinger Farming 3.25. Now, I actually did this already at league start, and it felt really good there, but the Scarab did increase in price. There was more demand and more attention to the strategy, so I wanted to take it up one more time and actually test how profitable is it with the current prices to this strategy. I think Harbinger Farming is really great. There are just a few things that you need to be aware of when doing it. The difference between running a 3.5-minute map and running a 5-minute map isn't the build, but the way you run the map. Of course, improving the build can improve the time per map, but how you run the map can be even more important, so I wanted to cover that first. When you load into the map, and we are using Delirium, so you want to pop the Delirium mirror and then you want to wait a few seconds. The reason we want to do this is that once we start killing Harbingers, the Delirium mirror will, or the Delirium fog will pause with moving. So it's at some point we're gonna kill so many Harbingers, it's just gonna stop moving altogether. At that point, we don't want to wait for the fog, we want to just finish the map in a good time frame. This means that when we do this, we wait 10 seconds at the beginning so for the mock can move as far as possible, and then we start running the map, we kill our Harbingers, and when we would run out of the fog, we just continue the map as if it would still be there. If we can finish the whole map with the Delirium Fog, we're gonna get a lot of splinters, but even if we do it, if we end it early, we usually get like 6 reward layers, and we're gonna get 1 to 2 daily ops out of this, so it's still gonna be good. The next thing that we need to be very aware of when running these Harbinger maps is how to kill the Harbingers. A Harbinger has the following phase. He is there, he spawns enemies, you kill the enemies, he spawns new enemies, and you repeat. Now, the way to do this more efficiently is that instead of only waiting for the Harbinger to spawn new enemies, once you kill the initial wave of enemies, you move and look for the next Harbinger. So if a Harbinger is within, let's say, 1 to 1.5 screen distances of the first one, you move there and then you repeat this. You're gonna clear the initial enemies. Once you've cleared the initial enemies, you're gonna move back to the first Harbinger. You're gonna clear the enemies there, let them spawn new ones, and you move back to the second Harbinger, clear the enemies there, and you're gonna repeat this till the first Harbinger is down. You go to the second Harbinger and you're gonna look for the third Harbinger. And you will repeat this and just hopping in between Harbingers over and over, and this should result in you clearing the Harbinger and the map faster. I've also added it as a note on the spreadsheet if you want to read this in simple terms, again, in a written way. Now, let's finally take a look at what we're doing it and how we're doing this. The map you should be running this is either Strand or Promenade. The reason for that is the Delirium Mirror. On either of those maps, we actually can get a lot of Simulacrum Splinters, which will over time add up to a few Simulacrums, which are a nice chunk of profit. We're also getting 1 to 2 daily ops per map on average, so we're gonna be very happy about those as well. The passive tree we are going to be using is the following. We want a tree that includes all the Harbinger nodes because we want as many shards and as many Harbingers as we can get. On top of that, we want some map sustain. If you can't fully sustain your map, instead of running on Strand, you should be running Promenade because Atoll is a good neighboring map you're going to get a good chunk of as well, which isn't as good as for Delirium, but it's still pretty great. Then we take Strand if we want to have a really good map sustain. If we have a really good map sustain, we take Strand because if we can fully sustain Strand, we're just gonna get more splinters from having Strand. So we're picking up Shaping the Mountains and Shaping the Skies. Then we also want some map effectiveness. So we're picking up Mounting Modifiers and Chiseled Perfection. We are going to chisel and alk our maps. The Harbingers themselves are not affected by our map modifiers or by the map tier. However, we are adding Beyond and Delirium and Exile influence. So these are affected by your pack size, by the quantity, and by the rarity. So having a good chunk of that on your map is really good. But I don't want to overinvest into the map, so I'm just chisel and alking to any runnable state and I'm running these maps. In my experience, this is enough to slightly oversustain your maps. We are utilizing singular focus for the same purpose of sustaining our maps, and we are adding skittering swarms, amplified artifacts, and remarkable relics on top of this to have even better sustain. To even gain some scarabs. Now the scarabs we're gonna getting aren't gonna be a scarab sustain. It's not gonna be that massive. but they can add up over time for a nice little additional profit, or maybe you're already finding some scarabs for your next strategy. Then we are getting to our Beyond. For Beyond and for Delirium, there's really a simple rule we are following. We want to have at least 92% chance to spawn for Beyond and for Delirium. Now, the reason for that is there is an innate 8% chance for a leak mechanic to appear. At least that is what we're currently assuming. It might not be a case anymore, but 92% is almost 100% uptime. So far I have not found any issues with that. Now, if you have points, if you are at 130 passive points, you can also pick up Fiendish Opulence for Beyond, getting you more tainted currency, but this will set up over 100 Beyond chance, so it's not needed, but it's really great to have. Just saying that these are additional points being able to pick up, otherwise this tree assumes 127 points. Then of course pick up the other Beyond nodes for chance. We pick up Endless Tide, do not have any bosses because we're killing a lot of enemies. We get a lot of Beyond enemies in our maps. We then pick up the same reason where we want the Fiendish Opulence. We pick up Pale Clarion because again, more currency from our Beyond enemies is great. And for Delirium, we do the same. We get to our 92% Delirium chance. Is it? Yes, Delirium, 92% Delirium chance, just so we have a mirror every map. And then we pick up Descent into Madness for the mirror to move faster, as eventually in the map it will stop. And we want to get as much daily in our map as we can. Finally, we are picking up Screaming Whispers. Screaming Whispers will get us more splinters, which should make more profit. And we pick up the Exile nodes for Exact Pack Size, Wrath of the Cosmos, World of the Exile, and the Light of Dawn. Now taking a look at the consistent and inconsistent profit. Sorry, before that, got the Scarabs. So we have established our map and the Atlas tree we want. Now we need to take a look at what Scarabs we want to use. We want to use Harbinger on a map device and 3 Harbinger Scarabs. This will fill our map with a lot of Harbingers. Then we want to use 1 Regency and 1 Warhorde. Now, there's also the Harbinger Scarab of Obelisk, which looks interesting, but in my small sample size testing, it did not feel worth it. So I, at the moment, are picking a third Harbinger Scarab over an Obelisk Scarab. Of course, I have heard people say they get a ton of on-the-side fracturing shards, but in my testing I only gotten hidden shards, so I don't know if it's good or not. For now, I will not recommend it, but feel free to test it out and convince yourself otherwise. And if you're testing it, feel free to share your results with me. The Warhorde Scarab and the Regency Scarabs are key for the Harbingers to be good. The Regency Scarab makes basically almost every Harbinger in a map a big Harbinger, and these big Harbingers have an improved chance of dropping fracturing shards. And the Warhordes will dupe those. So it's definitely only good to run Harbingers if you can add those 2 Scarabs to your strategy. I would not recommend doing Harbingers without these, as fracturing orbs are the key to making profit with this threat. Now, finally moving to consistent and inconsistent profit. And I have to state here that even with my very quick runtime, this is not looking that great. And as to why, I will come to now. So first of all, I take on top time maps, if I play them efficiently and aware of what I'm doing, I'm running in like 3.5 minutes. If I'm if I'm like clearing Harbinger, then move to the next Harbinger, then going to the next Harbinger, I take like 5 minutes. So I set up here the average of 4, or well, not average of 4 minutes, but my expected time of 4 minutes, because then I don't need to be super efficient all the time, but I am playing aware and do my Harbinger hopping. So if we look at the consistent drops, you will notice that there's a lot of stuff listed here. I usually don't like to do this, but I felt kind of not forced to do it, but I wanted to make the profit per hour as realistic to the actual profit per hour as possible this time on the consistent drops, because I don't like if this thing is negative. I don't like if the base amount of items you can expect to get about 1 or more every map is not adding up. So I added tainted currency. I added the base map because we are considering it the cost. We also need to consider it in the gain. And I added the Exalt orbs, which you get over shards, annulments and ancient orbs you get over shards. But even with all that combined, we are still looking at a negative profit per hour on a base level. Be in mind, there's big drops that we can get somewhat consistent. If I say inconsistent, this is still something that we expect a regular amount in our strategy, because this is what we're targeting, right? So if we hop over to inconsistent, we have divine orbs, which we're gonna get random divine drops every few maps. Or well, not every few maps, but like every 20-25 maps. We're gonna get tainted fusings, quite a lot actually. We're gonna get fracturing charts eventually. And even got 5 fracturing orbs out of these 100 maps. So that you're gonna get those eventually. And then there's simulacrums, which technically would be consistent because you get like 100 shards each map. But then I also felt like there's already so much on this side, I added them to the inconsistent drops. At least it's my justification. Not the best one I had, but it's my justification for adding simulacrums on the right side. So if we're looking at both combined, we are looking at 5.5 divines an hour. This just means that if you were to run 1 map, 2 maps, 3 maps, 4 maps, 5 maps, you would not be making profit. You need to run a good chunk of maps, 50 to 100 maps, to start seeing the profit per hour be realistic. This is why I'm dividing these, by the way, because if you only look at the consistent, if you only run like a small sample size, consistent profit is what you can expect. If you run a big sample size, consistent and inconsistent profit is what you can expect. But overall, this looks good. Now, if you are dropping down to, I'm running this very slowly, I'm running this leisurely, I'm doing it on a very casual level, or well, casual might be rude. For some people, we think casual is something else than others. So if you run it at 5 minutes per map, your drop profit already drops down. You are technically losing less profit per hour because you're running less maps, so that is great. But you are also making less if you are looking at the inconsistent side, at the big drops. So that's with 5 minutes. If you're running it very efficiently, oh, the wrong button, very efficiently, you're more looking like 6 div an hour. But this is constantly doing every hobby hopping, running the maps efficiently, killing in a good time manner. Oh, I can see that being doable for like an hour, 2 hours, at least that's what I done. But if you run this for 4 hours, 5 hours, I think a 4 minute is a more expectable time. Now, finally, taking a look at the Wealthy Exile and in-game loot. Now, Wealthy Exile assumes my stash after I filtered out all the things that I don't expect to sell to about 77 divines. And the cost for this, that when I bought my Scarabs, I spent about 30 divines. So we are expecting, according to this, roughly 47 divines in gain. Or in 77 divines gain and 47 divines in profit. Now, if we are looking in-game, I've gotten a few things. So I already filtered out everything that I don't think. We have fortresses here, which aren't considered on a spreadsheet. We have tomes, which we got, which aren't considered on a spreadsheet. We did got a few interesting fractures. Got a few interesting corrupts. We got one jewel, which could have been a better one. In my case, it was one of the cheap ones. I gotten a Starfall K1, which got power rune. That was a nice lucky drop. I gotten 2 Valdus boxes, and I gotten a few clusters, which according to Wealthy Exile are worth something. Then some claw clusters. I gotten a good chunk of tainted currency and also eldritch currency. Though I don't like to add eldritch currency to the profit on the sheet, because some people like to always run Ether and some people to always run Exile. So I like to keep those out of the sheet, but I will include them in my final profit, which I will be liquefying in a moment. And then we got a good chunk of annulment, exalts, chaos, divines, ancient orbs, and fracturing orbs. Now, the fragments I completely cleared out. I did got a good chunk of scarabs dropped. Nothing really special. I think 2 glitterings, which of course would have added to the profit. But scarabs, I always feel like if I run 100 maps, or if I tell somebody run 100 maps with this, they're not gonna liquefy the scarabs. They're gonna liquefy the things that you target with the map. So the scarabs I only add to the profit, and that is what I'm farming for the profit now. But yeah, that is in-game. So I will be liquefying in a moment, and then we can see the actual profit made. Hey, post liquefying Cyclon here. Most stuff has sold. Right now I'm still sitting on some simulacrums, which I expect I'm gonna get my price was. I think I get like 1k chaos from my Zemus. Combine that with what I already have in stash, we are looking at roughly so this is my assumption, we have 3.8k chaos, which is roughly 24 divines, going for a market rate of 155 chaos to a divine. That means that we add our 56 raw divines to have approximately 80 divines in gain. Now this is assuming that it took me 4 minutes per map. It took me roughly 6 hours to run these maps. This means I had a 13 div per hour gain. But of course, if we subtract the cost, that is an 8 div per hour profit. I think with this, Harbinger's in a fairly good state. There's nothing wrong with running Harbingers, it's gonna be fine. However, it seems to be very reliant on the fracturing shards to make a big gain. So if you get a fracturing shard duped into a full orb, or you get mirror shards, or you get any big lucky drop, that's gonna massively explode your div per hour rate. But if you get an unlucky phase where you maybe get only 1 to 3 fracturing orbs in 100 maps, that's gonna reduce your div per hour rate. So that much for Harbing. I think it's a solid strat. It's not, I would say, I mean, it really depends on what other strategies are making this league. If we look just at T16 strategies and we say 10 div an hour is S tier, then this is S minus. If we are arguing that 15 divs or 20 divs an hour is S tier, then this is a solid A tier strategy. But all this being said, this is the video, this is the strategy. Hopefully this was informative. And if you have any questions, as usual, the comment section is open, Discord is open, DMs or the designated channels on my Discord, or drop by live on Twitch. I'm streaming currently every day, and I really appreciate everyone interacting with me in Twitch chat. Have a nice day, and I see you in my next video live on Twitch. Goodbye.